All right, let's go live. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Chuck Holton here, back in Panama in my studio, and it's good to see you all. Do me a favor, if you're watching from any place around the world, put the place you're watching from in the chat because I'd like to see that. It's fun to see where people are coming in from, and it helps the algorithm too. So thank you from Arkansas, Texas, another Texas, South Africa. We get people from all over the planet, and that is really awesome. And so look, I'm going to be talking about an attack that happened coming across the border from Jordan that killed two Israelis today. But before I get to that, I I just have to address this uh, issue that keeps getting brought up. I have a lot of people who have been uh, contacting me and saying, we're talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And they're saying, I'm hearing, or people are telling me, my mom's sending me videos. They're claiming that the Israelis assassinated Charlie Kirk because he was anti-Israel. He had turned against Israel. And first of all, I just want to tell you that is absolutely asinine. The Israelis are not going to assassinate a high level uh, conservative figure in the United States who happens to be good friends with Donald Trump. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. Logically, Israel would not do that. And as I've often said, there's this sort of proverb called Occam's razor. Occam's razor just posits that the simplest answer is usually the correct one. And since we have a uh, extremist, psychopathic, uh, anti conservative kid, 22-year-old kid who admitted to the assassination, I think it's kind of ridiculous that people are, just digging so deep, looking so hard for no, there's got to be a way to blame this on Israel. And that is just gross. But just to put your mind at ease about what Charlie Kirk thought about Israel, I want to play for you this debate that Charlie Kirk had at Cambridge University in England with a mop headed college student about Israel. And you tell me if you think Israel would like Charlie Kirk or to be alive and well or not. Okay, you tell me. Take a listen.
Let me ask you, in the conflict of Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children in a futile.
Let's zero in on it.
There is no justification, Mr. Kirk, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West's security.
You've made that point, but
well, it's not a point; it's a moral truth, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from, which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Well, hold on. It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy, Hamas is bad, has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University.
Boom. As somebody said, it's kind of hard to take anybody seriously with hair like that. That makes me think about the fact that testosterone levels have been declining across the board for many years. As a matter of fact, then that has to do with our sponsor today. So take a look at this. So testosterone levels in men today are circling the drain compared to a few decades ago. We're not talking urban legend here. We're talking published studies. A 20-year-old guy in the late 90s had nearly double the testosterone of the soy latte sipping 20-year-olds that are wandering around campus today. That's not progress, that's failure. If you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, it's really time to pay attention. Low testosterone isn't just about muscles or sex drive. It's tied to mood, energy, focus, fertility, and whether you got enough juice to drag yourself off the couch and live like a functioning human being. So here's the deal. Diet and exercise are just the baseline. Get some sun, stop eating like a raccoon in a dumpster, and that alone will help. And if you want to stack the deck a little further, there's Mars from the Wellness Company. It's a doctor-formulated nutraceutical, no steroids, no shady stimulants, just ingredients like Tonkat Ali, Tribulus, that's Tribulus, horny goat weed, yeah, that's really what they call it, and don't look at me, I didn't make up that name, and zinc. So put together, they support testosterone production and circulation and the kind of vitality you thought you left back in college. So it isn't about proving your manhood. It's about not turning into the kind of guy that needs a nap after tying his shoes. So go to twc.health/hotzone, use code HOTZONE for 10% off and free shipping. That's twc.health/hotzone, code HOTZONE, and start moving, get outside, fuel your body right, and let Mars help you stop the slide. All right, so let's get on to the news today. Yeah, I'm back in Panama, Condor. So there was just a few moments ago, a Houthi drone or missile came in and actually struck in Eilat. That's that southern city down right on the Red Sea, and it hit a hotel, but nobody was injured. I've got a photograph of that, I think, here. Yeah, here it is. So it looks like it struck right next to the hotel. So nothing damaged, nobody hurt. But obviously the Houthis continuing to make a nuisance of themselves. They've been aiming at the airport in Eilat, just north of Eilat, quite a bit, and they actually struck the airport there not long ago. And the testing 1 2. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to change microphones. Every time I put this thing in, it wants this to be the microphone, and I don't want that to be the microphone. It's not a good microphone. Anyway, so they've been aiming at the airport in Eilat, Eilat. That airport doesn't really get a lot of traffic. Sort of ironically, the traffic they do get very often is made up of Palestinians from Gaza. Because when Palestinians get a chance to leave Gaza for medical reasons or whatever reason, they have to leave through Israel because Egypt won't allow Gazans in. And so the Israelis transport them from Gaza down to Eilat because they're not going to take a bunch of Palestinians through Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. I promise you that. So they take them down to this remote airstrip in Eilat and they fly out of there. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, They had a jumbo jet full of Gazans that left Gaza, drove to Eilat, got on a jumbo jet, and flew to the UAE and a couple other places. They were allowed in. So Israel is allowing Gazans to leave if they have someplace to go. They can't just leave and go to Israel. And Egypt certainly does not want them. Egypt has been threatening 9 ways from Sunday. Do not let those guys into Egypt. That's for 2 reasons. Number one, because the Egyptians don't like Palestinians. They tend to create criminality and terror when they come to Egypt. So they don't like that. Thank you, MM. Very good, good of you. Good to see you here. On top of that, the Egyptians, being Arab Muslims, want to continue to weaponize the Gazans against Israel. And that's why all of the Arab Muslim countries, even the ones that are not all that angry with Israel, or at least not enemies with Israel. I'm talking about countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, countries like that. Although Qatar is pretty upset with Israel right now. Those countries will not agree, by and large, to allow Gazans to leave Gaza, not because it would be good or bad for the people in Gaza to do that, but because they want to continue to use the Gazans as a weapon against Israel. If they were able to clear out Gaza, it would go so far to normalizing relations in the whole region. If Gaza was cleared out and was no longer able to be weaponized against Israel, the whole region, it'd be like letting the pressure relief valve open and just letting all the pressure out of the region in many ways. Now, Hamas, they just caught Hamas putting out flyers telling people in Gaza to go to the Egyptian border and that they would be allowed to cross into Egypt. Why is Hamas saying that to the people in Gaza? Because they're trying to create chaos, because it's not safe in Rafah. Rafah is completely controlled by the IDF, and it is still considered, much of it, to be a combat zone. And so Hamas is trying to push civilians into that region because they're sort of failing at keeping them in Gaza City. Hamas wants the people of Gaza City to stay there because they're using them as human shields. And we have a little video from the spokesperson from the IDF explaining what's going on in Gaza right now. I put some B-roll on it for you, so take a look at this update from Gaza.
Marking the start of the new phase of the operation. Working together in coordinated and precise strikes, air, ground, and intelligence forces are targeting Hamas military targets that threaten Israel's security. Gaza City is the central hub of Hamas's military and governing power, their main stronghold. Hamas has turned Gaza City into the largest human shield in history. Beneath the streets runs a vast network of tunnels connecting command centers, rocket launchers, and weapon storage facilities, all deliberately hidden under civilians and civilian infrastructure. We continue to urge civilians to distance themselves away from the combat zones in Gaza City so they can reach safer areas. In recent weeks, the IDF expanded humanitarian efforts in Gaza, setting up a humanitarian area in the south. This area provides greater access to food, water, medical care, and shelter. And while Israel works to open corridors for civilians to move south, such as the Rashid corridor, Hamas is actively trying to block them, forcing families to turn back and remain in harm's way in order to shield Hamas fighters and preserve its power. Hamas continues to hold dozens of our hostages in inhuman conditions. Their safe return is at the forefront of our mission. They are the reason we continue our fight. Our forces are acting with determination, guided by the clear moral duty to free our hostages and end Hamas's.
So there is continued heavy fighting in Gaza. They just had 4 IDF soldiers killed today when their vehicle hit an IED in the road. And that's very, very sad. But this is what they're having to deal with. You see the video there of the incredible amount of debris that's just everywhere in Gaza, and how the IDF soldiers have got to kind of, climb over all of this destruction. And all of these buildings are booby trapped. And I can tell you from having been there many times myself, in situations like that, that you think about every step you take in an environment like that, because when there are booby traps, IEDs, landmines everywhere, every time you take a step, you think, is this going to be the step that blows my leg off? And it is a very stressful thing. That's why the IDF is going very slowly and methodically through Gaza as they're making their way through there and clearing it out. Now, about 400,000 Gaza City citizens have left Gaza City and headed out. And so many are leaving, as a matter of fact, that they had to open up another humanitarian corridor to get them out, because it was just like a parking lot. It was so crowded on the humanitarian corridor going south and to the west that they had to open a new one. There are still a lot of people that are staying in Gaza City. Many of them are military-age males. As you see videos of the airstrikes that are taking place, almost always in the foreground, you will see military-age males, young men with cell phones filming, because why? They've been warned that this building is about to get knocked down. Now, if we go back to that video for a second, and I'll talk over it, so I'll turn it down and talk over it a little bit.
Last night, the IDF.
If we look here, watch for the B-roll here. Okay, this right here, boom. I just want you to, I'm going to stop it right there. I want you to look at all of the places where a sniper could be hiding. Okay, every one of those windows, all up and down that street, is a potential sniper's nest. One of the hard things about the urban warfare that the IDF is conducting in Gaza City is that the geometry is so against you. There are so many places to get shot from. And so they've got to go very slowly, very methodically, and they have to destroy a lot of what they pass because they have to get rid of those sniper nests or potential sniper nests that could shoot at them once they've gone by. So they're finding buildings that are, that are booby trapped. They're finding improvised explosive devices everywhere. You see here, this is Gaza City. I mean, there are people running around in here filming this. They know what to point their camera at because the Israelis have told them where they're going to bomb next. And these people are still just sort of doing their thing there. So let's see here. You can see here the gunfire. Now, this gunfire you're seeing, it could be firing at known sites, but probably not. I'm talking about known enemy positions. This is what we call recon by fire. How do I know? Because this guy's not taking cover. He's just standing in the window and lighting up the building across the street. So if he was really in a firefight getting shot at by Hamas, he would be taking cover like this guy is. This guy's taking cover. But very often this video that you're seeing of these guys is they are shooting at things to keep the enemy's head down while another element moves. Now you can see here the tunnels being blown up. They're finding tunnels underneath everything in Gaza, and they're having to destroy those tunnels one after the other. Now, President Trump has been weighing in on the fact that Hamas is taking the remaining hostages, moving them above ground, putting them in some of these buildings, putting them in some of those tents you see in the foreground of that video, and saying, you better not come in here because you're going to end up killing your own hostages. This is so totally against the Geneva Conventions, against international law, against humanitarian law. These are war crimes that are taking place by Hamas. And what I wonder, if we go back to that video where Charlie Kirk was debating the mop-headed kid at Cambridge, why did that kid, why do people like that never bring up the fact that Hamas is committing these very blatant war crimes every day by fighting from in and among civilian population, by holding civilians as hostages, by using the civilians as human shields? Why don't they bring that up? And my question, if I was in Charlie Kirk's place at that debate, I would have just had one question for that redheaded kid. I would have just said, okay, I want you to do a thought experiment for me. You are Benjamin Netanyahu. Your job is to safeguard the Israeli people. Hamas just attacked your country with thousands of fighters and civilians coming illegally across the border into Israel and murdering 1,300 civilians. What do you do? What would your response to that be? How would you stop the violence? And I would love to hear somebody answer. Give me a straight answer for what he would do in that case. Okay. Now let's get to the Allenby Bridge thing because that's really the main topic of today's thing. Now the Allenby Bridge. I'm going to go to a map here. Bring up the map. The Allenby Bridge crossing is the crossing between Jordan and Israel, right in central Israel. There are, I think, 4 total crossings between the two countries. You know, Jordan and Israel are not at war with each other. They're actually pretty friendly. Jordan gets a large amount, a good percentage, maybe 40% of its water from Israel. And the United States pays Jordan to be friendly to Israel. So they have a kind of decent relationship. There have been several times during this war that Palestinians, who make up about 60% of the citizens of Jordan, or people who live in Jordan, have rioted in front of the embassy. They've even marched to the border crossing, saying that they were going to cross into Israel and invade Israel. And they have been stopped, not by Israel, but by Jordan, by Jordanian forces. So Jordan sides with Israel on much of this. Obviously, we've seen Jordan also shoot down missiles from Iran many times during this war. So Jordan, think of them as a friend. I cross back and forth between Israel and Jordan quite a bit because when I travel over there, oftentimes the airline prices are half to fly into Queen Aliyah Airport in Amman than they are to fly into Tel Aviv, into Ben Gurion. So I'll fly into Jordan, take a taxi to the border, cross the border at the Allenby Bridge, where you see this picture here, and go. That's the closest border crossing to Jerusalem. Now, Israelis typically don't cross at the Allenby Bridge crossing because that's the crossing that's reserved for Palestinians to cross back and forth. And obviously the two don't mix very well. So Israelis will usually cross either down in Eilat or up at the Dead Sea. I'm sorry, the Sea of Galilee crossing. I've been through all of those crossings. This one is the closest to Jerusalem, so it's the one that I cross through the most. I like to tell the story about the time that I went and picked up Oscar Blue Ramirez. He flew into Amman. I went to go, I took him around Jordan for a couple days and showed him around. And then we crossed into Israel. And of course, Oscar he's Mexican. So he kind of looks like a Palestinian. He's real swarthy and dark-skinned and black hair and has a beard and everything. So, typically I would get more stares at the border crossing from the Palestinians there than Oscar would. But I noticed this particular time, everybody was giving Oscar the hairy eyeball. I mean, they were really looking sideways at Oscar. And so I was wondering, like, what's wrong? And then I looked twice at Oscar and realized his backpack that he was carrying had a giant American flag patch on the outside of the backpack. And I was like, Oscar, maybe you should remove that flag while we're crossing the border here. I mean, Oscar's not even an American, and he's carrying an American flag on his backpack. He just, didn't think about that. But so there was an attack today at this crossing. We'll go over here and I'll show you what that looks like. That if we look at the actual map, it's out in the middle of nowhere. And over here you can see the actual border itself, which is the Jordan River. The Jordan River is not very wide. You could easily throw a stone across the Jordan River out here. It's very dry. And this is the highway that comes from Amman up here. Amman's up this way. We'll probably be able to see it better if we go here. There's Amman, Jordan, and there's Jerusalem. So you can see here that this is the nearest to both of those. It's right across from Jericho. So if we go down to this border crossing, what you'll see is it's in the middle of the desert. It's super hot, super uncomfortable. And first thing you do if you're crossing from Jordan is you go to the Jordanian side over here, and you go to this place. This place is very uncomfortable, no air conditioning, flies everywhere, super dirty. All the people inside are smoking cigarettes. It's not fun, not fun. And you have to go back and forth to these different windows and get your passport stamped and pay a fee and get a little ticket and go back and forth and back and forth. And of course, these people don't speak very good English, and they're not used to dealing with Americans. And so it's tedious, to say the least. Once you get through there, you get on a shuttle bus, and they drive you over here to the Israeli side of the crossing, which is right here. Now, this side has a couple of buildings right here that you go through, and this is where the shooting happened. Now, this is on the Israeli side. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The dude who did the shooting today was driving an aid truck that was bound for Gaza. He was an aid truck driver, and he jumped out of his truck. He started shooting. He killed a 60-year-old and a 20-something-year-old Israeli. These are most likely people who work there, not tourists or anything, because like I said, Israelis don't cross at this crossing. So he jumped out, he started shooting, he killed those two guys. He was neutralized by the security forces there. And I have a video of this going on here. You can't see much, but you see these are security forces with their weapons. You hear a couple of shots. And of course, the guy filming is shouting Allahu Akbar, which is wonderful. The Magen David Adom ambulances showed up very quickly and took charge of the scene, tried to help or resuscitate the guys who were, you probably can't hear me too well, tried to resuscitate the guys who were shot, and they were pronounced dead at the scene. They also found a knife that the assailant had on his person as a backup weapon. Now, this attack comes exactly 1 year from the last attack that took place here at the Allenby Bridge junction. And that, folks, I don't think it's symbolic or anything like that. It's probably just a coincidence. But still, there have been multiple attacks at that site. It is a very dangerous crossing, and that's one of the reasons why Israelis don't go there. Okay, so this is what we know so far. Again, 2 Israelis killed. The attacker himself was neutralized. He was driving an aid truck that was bound for Gaza, and there's lots of aid trucks that come across there, and you can see here on the map there are a lot of trucks that cross at this border. As a matter of fact, it takes a long time for these trucks to get across. So this guy probably had to wait in line to get to this point where he could jump out and start shooting for many hours, if not days. Sometimes they have to actually just stay there in line for a couple days to get across. So sad, day for the Israelis, not only losing some of their soldiers in Gaza, but continuing to have to deal with this kind of, shenanigans taking place in other places. Now, so this is not an attack by Jordan. This is not an attack that was in any way, I don't think, facilitated or encouraged by Jordan. The king of Jordan wants to maintain friendly relations with Israel, and that would be a really smart thing for him to do because Israel could cut off their water supply if they didn't. So that's what we know about that. Now, I wanted to talk, the last but not least, how long have we been going? 31 minutes. Before we get to the questions, I wanted to talk about 2 more things. One, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a very interesting 8-minute speech yesterday about the economic growth in Israel, even during wartime. And it was actually a pretty rosy outlook. It's surprising. Prime Minister Netanyahu was once the Minister of Finance in Israel, and he can speak very intelligently about the money supply and the currency exchange ratios and the gross domestic product per capita and the foreign direct investment and the money supply and all those sorts of things that make up the economic picture that we see in Israel. But I still often hear anti-Israel commentators like Scott Ritter or Colonel McGregor or Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson making the claim that Israel is on the ropes economically, their economy is failing, their economy is crumbling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu came out and just laid it out. Here's where we are. Here's where we've been. Here's where we were at the beginning of the war. You can see that that essentially the message of this, I'll just boil it down for this whole 8-minute video. The message was people are betting on Israel winning this war. Very often, I found when I was a stockbroker, you can go out there and there are pundits that will claim anything. Depending on their audience, depending on who is paying their bills. There are journalists and commentators who will, you can find that will say just about anything, right? And so you really can't, you have to take them with a grain of salt. But if you really want to know where something is, like what's going on somewhere, what you need to look at is the investment activity in that area. Because investors are putting their livelihoods, putting their money on the line. If I'm Tucker Carlson, I can spout off out my face hole all I want about what's going on in Israel. And I can be completely 100% wrong, and he is most of the time. I'm still going to get paid. It doesn't really matter. But if I'm an investor and I'm looking to where to grow my investments, where to put my money to make it grow, if I make a wrong decision, it's going to come back and bite me hard. So I'm going to be very careful about doing my due diligence and studying where to put my money to make it grow. And what we're finding is that people are investing in Israel like there's no tomorrow. As a matter of fact, there are lots of indicators that show that Israel is making progress. They're winning the war, not the least of which is the grim Beeper attack that took out Hezbollah a year ago, or the 12-day war against Iran, or the continued progress in Gaza or Judea and Samaria. Or what they're doing in Syria, or just on and on and on. There's lots of things to look at. 90% of the Israelis who were driven out of their homes in near the Gaza Strip or up in the north of Israel along the border with Lebanon have been able to return home. Their kids have gone back to school. They're resuming normal life, and they're not having to worry about rockets and missiles coming across from Gaza or Lebanon by and large. So those are all indicators Israel is winning. But the best indicator of all is that Israel is seeing a huge spike in foreign direct investment. These are people from other countries that are looking at Israel and saying, that's where I want to park my money, because that's how I can make the most money, grow my money the most, is by investing in Israel. One of the things that Prime Minister Netanyahu pointed out in that speech, and I'm going to post the entire speech over at chuckholton.com. So folks, if you're not a member at chuckholton.com, you really should be. You get a lot of extra content. You get free copies of some of my books. You get early access to a lot of my videos. You get one-on-one conversations with me about once a month. We do a live call. We're doing one this Saturday where you can become a member. You can get on a Zoom call and talk to me face to face, and we can have, rather than you typing in the chat and hoping that I see it, you can actually talk to me and we can discuss whatever issues you want to discuss. So we do all that over at chuckholton.com. I highly recommend you go over there, and you can support us over there and support the work that we're doing around the world to help single mothers, to help people that are affected in war zones, to help people in Israel and Ukraine and everywhere else. So I would encourage you to go over to chuckholton.com and do that. I will post the entire 8-minute speech if you want to go watch it over there. However, I'm going to show you an excerpt from the speech that talks specifically about the defense industry in Israel, because a lot of people have asked, will Israel be able to survive and continue to prosecute this war if the United States were to withdraw its support, or if the EU or other European countries withdraw their support, like Spain is doing, like France is doing, like Germany has done to some extent? A lot of countries are saying, we're not going to do business with Israel. We're going to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel to try to force them to lose the war in Gaza. And so a lot of people have worried about that. I've wondered, is Israel going to be able to survive if it doesn't get help from outside? Well, they are pushing very hard to to improve or increase the amount of military hardware, ammunition, and things like that they're making inside Israel, independent of any foreign country. And one of the things that they have developed is this new technology that they call the iron beam. The iron beam is a very powerful laser that can shoot down incoming rockets, drones, and mortar rounds. So it can't quite shoot down ballistic missiles yet, but give it about 5 years and they'll be able to do that too, I think. Nevertheless, they are starting to now roll out the iron beam. It has already been proven in combat. It's already shot down dozens of rockets and drones that in the testing phase. But now Israel is starting to actually put this into production and roll it out. And they just released probably the best video I've ever seen that shows what it looks like and how it works. I had to go through and strip out all the music off of this, but I put different music on so you can watch it. But take a look at the Where did it go? Allenby Bridge. Mars. Where did it go? I think I might have. No, that's not it. Here we go. There we go. Iron beam. Whoa, too big.
Weapon system.
Now, at the end of this little video, you're going to hear an excerpt from Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech
Laser system
about.
ready. 3, 2, 1.
You're going to hear an excerpt from Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech about the defense industry. So I want you to listen.
Target engage. Laser interception in progress. Successfully intercepted.
Target successfully intercepted.
Target launched.
Target launched. Target engage. Laser interception in progress. Successfully intercept the
Target successfully intercepted.
That's a mortar round. There's the mortar round in flight.
Iron beam.
Boom, taken out.
High power
By-
laser weapon system.
One area that I spoke about yesterday was the weapons industry. There's a race now for weapons in the world, but it is not a market race. Because unlike everything else that we could talk about, that's controlled by governments. And their calculations can sometimes be political, not necessarily economic. And therefore, what we are going to do is to build an arms industry that will match the best arms industries in the world with one proviso. We want to produce first for ourselves on a much larger scale and with unimaginable innovation. I speak to the innovators. I find it hard to believe what they're telling me that they're going to produce. Then again, they said that to me a few years ago, and I found it hard to believe, but you saw some of it, not even all of it, in the 12-day war with Iran. So we are going to produce an independent arms industry, very powerful, very strong, that can withstand any kind of international political constraints and will provide security for the state of Israel. This is what I envision for the state.
Okay, so that was just an excerpt from that speech, and it helps you understand. Do you understand that Israel is the only country in the world that has a functional laser air defense system? Did you get that? And everybody on planet Earth is going to want to buy that system. We have officially entered the Star Wars age now. You're going to see those kind of directed energy weapons proliferating at an amazing pace. But right now, Israel's the only one that has that technology. There are the United States, Russia, lots of other countries are trying to develop it, but are years behind Israel in developing this technology. So it's a big deal. It is a big deal, folks. All right, so let's go over to our questions now for the last 15 minutes or so. And Vivian Brixton says, what are your thoughts about the need of the Palestinians to have IDF support to evacuate Gaza because Hamas won't let them leave? Well, what Israel has been doing is putting out the word to the people in Gaza City. If Hamas is preventing you from leaving, call this number and report where their checkpoints are or report where they are, and we will take them out. So if you do that, then Israel will clear the way for you. Hamas just put out a video of them stealing more aid trucks, and they've got their own vehicles in front of the aid trucks with Hamas fighters hanging out the windows with their weapons and everything. And they've got Hamas fighters standing on top of the aid trucks as they're ripping through town to steal the aid. Now, do you think that the Israelis have drones overhead that have eyes on those convoys? I can guarantee you they do. So why doesn't Israel smite those convoys and eliminate those Hamas vehicles and fighters? Well, the reason is because there are civilians around. And it's just another proof that Israel would rather allow Hamas to steal aid than kill civilians, keeping Hamas from stealing the aid. And it just, again, gives the lie to the idea that Israel is intentionally fomenting genocide on the people of Gaza. Now, personally, if it was me, I think Israel's munitions are accurate enough that they could, wax the Hamas vehicles in front of and behind the convoy and at least take those vehicles off the chessboard. But Israel is not willing to take that chance. I probably would be. So KP1 asks, off topic, this world feels like a powder keg about to go off. Am I thinking clearly? Where would said keg go off in your opinion? It feels like there are snakes everywhere. KP1, I've been talking and writing a lot about that recently in my new book that's coming out shortly. And I think that the powder keg is in the United States. I think just like I predicted in my last book, which came out last November, called Death of Civilization, we are going to see a spike in politically motivated violence. There is a nexus of Islamic jihadists, Marxists, right, and incels that all kind of, if you put that Venn diagram together, the ones that are inside all three of those things, they're all working together to increase the division, dissension, anger, and violence inside America. Add to that the fact that there are foreign actors from Russia and China and Iran and elsewhere who are online with tens of thousands of people who are intentionally fomenting that dissension, division, and hatred in America. And it's no wonder that it feels the way that it does, KP1. Now, I believe you live in the UK, if I'm not. Oh, no, you're in Florida or someplace, right? But anyway, that's, I believe, why it feels that way so much, because there are a lot of outside forces, Marxists, jihadists, foreign entities, bad actors, and then you have the whole incel problem that all are working together in the United States to tear our country apart. And that's why we really need to try to work to improve our relationships with our neighbors, with our church, with our community, to try to offset that, because that's how you do it. That's how you offset that, is by getting off your couch, getting off the screens, and actually getting into your community, getting into your church, and getting involved and making your community more resilient that way. Okay. Mama Marissa says, does the IDF have infrared? Would that help in an environment like this? They do have infrared. When you see the videos of them blowing up tunnel systems and it's black and white, and then the tunnel, when the explosion goes off, appears black, like a black line, that's infrared cameras right there. Penny Tomlinson says, do you think extremists may try to cause shenanigans at Charlie Kirk's funeral? Wouldn't surprise me if they did. Does Israel still, this is Shoni says, does Israel still bulldoze the homes of something? Yes, they do. They're still bulldozing lots of homes. Kelly Song said, Shofar just sent an alert. Incoming rockets again, Tel Aviv. Yeah, this more rockets from the Houthis. Not much risk to people in Israel, and I would imagine that a lot of people are not even bothering to go to the shelters right now because those missiles either don't make it into Israel or they get shot down. Kent Hammond says, when you're traveling these different countries, do you carry firearms? No, I don't, by and large. Very seldom do I carry a firearm. Why? Because it's virtually impossible to do in many places. I can't bring it with me, and getting one when I get there would be pretty tough. I do carry a firearm when I'm in Syria because I can, and Burma, a couple places like that. When I'm in the States, I definitely carry, and here in Panama, I can carry as well. So if I can, I do. Typically, I can't, and I'm usually with people who are carrying. And if the shooting starts, if I'm in like Ukraine or someplace, and the shooting starts, I need to be filming. If it gets bad enough that I need to be shooting, you can bet there's going to be some people laying around that aren't using their weapons anymore, and I could get one of those. So there's that. Was aid coming in from Jordan? Yes, there is still, Karen, a lot of aid coming in from Jordan and across the Allenby Bridge crossing for sure. Nana, I can't read that. Reamer? Question you posed in regard to what would you do if you were Netanyahu? Looking forward to others' answers. I personally am incredibly proud of Prime Minister. Vivian Brickson says, do you think the IDF will find any hostages? I am pretty certain they will find hostages. I just don't think they will be living. That's not real likely. Rescuing living hostages, unless they get a tip from somebody, unless the Hamas fighters who are tasked with guarding those hostages decide to give themselves up, it's not likely they're going to find any of the hostages alive. I can virtually guarantee you that they will never get all 48 hostages that are left out of there. They will never find all of the bodies of the ones who have perished. Maricopa Joe says, Biden holding back arms has pushed Israel away from dependency on arms from USA. Well, that was probably an unintended consequence, and those arms are not being withheld anymore by the Trump administration. But the kind of arms that were being withheld are, many of them were small arms that the Biden administration didn't want getting into the hands of Israelis in Judea and Samaria, which is gross because Israelis in Judea and Samaria definitely need weapons. But those are now being, they're being purchased by Israel. It's not like the United States is just giving them to Israel. The U.S. has a very large stockpile of artillery shells and missiles and things like that and bombs, aerial bombs in Israel. And it's there not just for the Israeli military to use, but for us to use if we ever needed it. We've allowed Israel to take some of those munitions and use them. And we've been replenishing that stockpile as well. So I think the things that Israel is working very hard to continue to make are like this Iron Beam system, more rockets for their Iron Dome system as well, and like bunker buster bombs and things like that. That'd be my guess, what they're talking about making on their own. The more high-tech stuff, obviously, is where Israel really shines. Sylvie, or MW says, I've been seeing many videos, primarily ultra-Orthodox and Orthodox Jews, discriminating, harassing, and cursing Christians in public in Israel. How prevalent is this? Not prevalent at all. There are a couple of videos of that happening from several years ago. I've not seen any videos that are current of that happening. No videos that have happened in the last several years. There typically there is some friction between Jewish ultra-Orthodox in the old city of Jerusalem and Armenian Christians in the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem. And so that's where a lot of those videos come from. And it's not necessarily a Jewish Christian thing. It's more of a real estate thing, because a bishop from the Armenian Apostolic Church in the old city of Jerusalem illegally sold a piece of land in the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem to an Israeli Jewish businessman who wants to develop that land into a hotel. When he came in, it was just a parking lot, but when he came in to start developing it, the rest of the Armenians who lived there were like, whoa, hey, hang on. This has been Armenian quarter. This belonged to the Armenians for more than 1,000 years. You can't just sell it. And the guy that sold it just took the money and ran. So they've had a big kind of brouhaha over that. They've had Armenian Christians that are camping on the land to try to stop them from destroying what's there and developing it and all that. And they're going back and forth over this because the guy already paid for it, so it's kind of it's a real estate problem. Now, are there ultra-Orthodox who don't like Christians? Maybe. I personally have spent 7 months in Israel during the war, and I've never seen that. I've never had, they might not be effusive towards Christians and like, oh, we love you. Oh, when you go to Armenia, Armenians are like that. Just everywhere you go, Armenians are so happy to see you. There are Jews, in Israel who are probably kind of ambivalent about Christians there, but the videos that keep getting trotted out of a bunch of kids, and typically they're kids, spitting at or throwing rocks at Christian pilgrims, that mostly has to do with the conflict between Armenians and the Jews in the Armenian quarter. And there have been a couple of times where there have been just, idiot kids who have been being stupid, not making connections up here. And that gets blown out of proportion into something where it's like, oh, the Jewish ultra-Orthodox hate Christians. Not true. I've been down at the Western Wall. I've been at many of their holiest sites, and they're always quite polite and even helpful to me, and happy that I'm there. And I've had quite a few of them who have actually thanked me for being in Israel during this time and supporting Israel during the war. So it is not prevalent at all. Thank you for asking that question. So Sylvie Francos, do you think that Israel will be done with Hamas by October 7th? No, they will not be. Maricopa Joe says, did you hear Trump is putting Antifa as domestic terrorist group? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was going to mention that at the end, but we can talk about it now. President Trump put up this tweet, says, I'm pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I'm designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I'll also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Now, I'm all for this. This makes me very happy that President Trump would do this. This is fantastic. You've heard me on this show saying President Trump needs to designate Antifa in such a way that they're going to be crushed by the Justice Department. And so very happy to see that. Kudos on President Trump. Now, with that said, we're going to find out if the president's labeling of Antifa as a terror organization helps at all, if there's anything that it actually changes, because the U.S. maintains a list of foreign terrorist organizations, but there is no list like that for domestic terror organizations. As a matter of fact, groups like the KKK and I would say Black Lives Matter and other what I would call domestic terror organizations are not even on that list. They're not on a list. There is no list like that in the United States. Why? Because when you designate a terror organization like one of the foreign cartels or Hezbollah or something like that, that opens up a lot of ability by the Justice Department to go after those organizations and seize their assets and seize the assets of people who give them bank accounts or people who perform financial transactions for them or support them in any way, whether it's a bank or anything like that. You can sanction those things. Those things would be pretty patently unconstitutional if you did them against American citizens. So if you got American citizens who belong to this organization, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to designate them as a domestic terror organization. That's something that needs to happen. But we're going to have to maybe rejigger the legal system somewhat. We're going to have to get Congress to pass some new laws to actually define what that means and what they can and cannot do, because they can't, by and large, confiscate, assets or things like that. Now, there's a precedent for this. If you look at the ATF and what they've done using the RICO statutes against people who are trafficking drugs in the United States, where I actually worked on one of these task forces when I was in college, flying helicopters for the ATF. If they find a guy who's grown a bunch of marijuana illegally or transporting dope illegally, they can go in and seize all that guy's assets, because it's fruit of the poisonous tree kind of thing, which means his house, his cars, his jewelry, whatever, are all purchased with dirty money that he, obtained by selling drugs. And so they take all of that, they can auction it off, and then they use that money to fund the ATF's operations against the drug cartels. And that has been in place for decades. 20, 30 years they've been able to do that. So using those RICO statutes, there's probably a way that we can apply that to Antifa. Look, Antifa exists around the world. There are Antifa in Great Britain, Antifa in Spain, Antifa in Germany, lots of places. So I don't know, maybe they could designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization, and then anybody in the United States who is participating in Antifa events or whatever. The problem is Antifa doesn't have a roster. They don't have a leadership. They don't have a headquarters or anything like that. It's an ad hoc group. So any jackwagon that wants to put on a black mask and go LARPing against the police can call himself Antifa or Black Bloc or whatever, and say that he's protected under the First Amendment. Well, we have to determine how we're going to get around those to actually go after Antifa in the United States, because you're going to be going after American citizens. So constitutionally, there's a much higher bar to get over. And that's not a bridge too far. I think it's something that can actually happen. But the simple fact of President Trump declaring it to be a domestic terror organization doesn't ipso facto give the Justice Department a lot more authority right now. They've got to figure out how to codify that. Does that make sense? Okay, on to the next question. Clint asks, is Israel going to disable Iran from arming its proxies? Well, they have been working on that for a couple of years now, so I guess the answer is yes. Iran is much less able to arm its proxies today than it was before, and that is because of Israel's actions. So yes. Betsy Anderson says, please get Zonian merch. We're working on that, for trying to get something out by Christmas. T-shirts, mugs, swimsuit calendar with me on it. I don't know, something. We'll figure something out. Lance asks from Oklahoma, what do you think about Trump trying to get our base back in Afghanistan? I didn't hear about that. That would be interesting. I think it would be smart. I think we could do it tomorrow if we wanted to. Trump could just, tell the Marine Corps, go take Bagram Air Base back and secure it. And we could have that done in an afternoon. I mean, the Taliban is no match for the United States. It would not be difficult for us to do. Why would it make sense for us to do? Because Afghanistan is it's in a great location for us to counter Iran right next door. And we've got bases in Iraq on the western side of Iran. If we got another base in Afghanistan on the eastern side of Iran, and we have bases in Qatar on the off the southern coast of Iran, we pretty much have Iran boxed in. We could also try to get a base in Armenia, and that would give us a base on the northern border of Iran, and then Iran would really be in trouble. So I think it'd be great if he could do it. I think we should do it. Okay, Megan, maybe get back some of our stuff that we left there anyway. I mean, the United States put trillions of dollars into building permanent infrastructure in Afghanistan, and then we just abandoned it all and left it. And now it's not like the Taliban is opening up universities in those buildings. There are probably goats running through those buildings now. I'm not kidding on that. There are probably goats running around on Bagram Airfield right now. Okay, Megan says, there have been reports that the Hawaii fires a few years back were caused by directed energy weapons, hence the Blue Roof conspiracy. Have you heard of this? Yeah, I've heard of it. That goes very much against Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the right answer. And again, I don't like these conspiracy theories. Because there are people out there who just, they so desperately want to feel like, no, we've got to figure out a way to blame this on the government. We've got to figure out a way to blame it on Israel. And so they put on their little tinfoil hat and they start figuring all these angles out. And it's like, oh yeah, this is information war by, and it's like, look, just like I said with the shooting of Charlie Kirk, there's a kid admitting to it. They found the weapon. They found the bullets. They've got the text messages. They've got lots of proof that it was this kid, and he was radicalized by going to university. That is such a simple answer. It has to, in my mind, it has to be the right answer. All this junk about, Charlie Kirk was killed at the top of, if you look at the aerial shot of the college where the place where he was shot was right at the top of something that looks like a menorah. And so that means that the Jews are behind that. Like, give me a break, people. Give me a break. Please stop. Just back away from your keyboard, for Pete's sake. If you're the kind of person that likes to get into that, you know who really likes to get into conspiracy theories like that? Arab Muslims. Muslims love conspiracy theories. And the conspiracy theory about Charlie Kirk being killed by Israel? My friend Ryan Macbeth helped to track down where that rumor got started. And it got started by 2 social media accounts out of Pakistan. So there you go. Go figure. All right. So please don't let yourself fall into believing all this garbage. It's the same thing with the war in Israel. It's the same thing with the war in Ukraine and bioweapons labs. Oh yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, give me a break. Please use your brain, people. I'm serious. Like, we don't need more conspiracy theories. Okay. All right. So that's all I've got for today, folks. Thank you very much for watching the podcast. I wanted to see how we're doing on time. Yeah, people like Candace Owens and Tucker and all that. And what they're trying to do is just get trying to rile up their followers. I mean, the InfoWars guys are notorious for this. Yeah, turning the frogs gay. And, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so tedious. I hate it. I'm just going to tell you the simple truth, and I'm going to try to get as close to the source of that truth as I can by going there and being on the ground. What you'll notice is that the people who are spreading these conspiracy theories online typically have never been to the places that they're talking about. They have absolutely no clue what they're talking about. And so don't listen to them. Just don't listen. Don't give them any air. Okay. All right. So again, we've got 2,500 people watching, folks. Make sure you hit the like button. Do me a favor. Go to chuckholton.com. Your support at chuckholton.com is really what keeps us doing this job, because the ad revenue from YouTube goes up one month, down another month, up and down, up and down. We can't rely on it. I've got a lot of overhead because of all the employees that I'm now employing to try to keep this thing rolling. And your assistance, your support over at chuckholton.com make all the difference in helping us meet payroll every month. So thank you very much for doing that. I hope that you will have a wonderful day and a great weekend. God bless you. Thank you for watching The Hot Zone. We'll see you next time. Oh, and don't forget my new channel, which is, there's a link in the description of this video. I have another YouTube channel I started where I'm putting up just nice, fun videos of walks through Italy and walks through the mountains of Armenia, walks through the mountains of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and Panama and everywhere. And a lot of people are really enjoying that. It's great if you get on the treadmill, you can just watch it and you just go along with me. And so go check out that new video. It's called Borderline Global Adventures. I guess that's what they're calling it now. So please go check that out. It would mean a lot to me if you'd go subscribe over there as well. Doesn't cost you anything, but I think you'd like it. All right.